Hey everybody, it's Psychic Krystaline. I'm here with a video on a big serial killing case that's kind of taken over my life the last 12 years on my volunteer work with Find Me group. And I'll get into the details of how a local case, Dwight Clark was a young college-age student who went missing from Bellingham, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. But the first thing I want to talk about is that I obsessively worked on this case for 2 years straight. Psychic insights that I got, I backed up with 2 years of research of circumstantial evidence. And so I compiled all of this with the help of Find Me Group. And Kelly Snyder, who's the director of Find Me Group, presented this for me. All of my work was presented to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York about 10 years ago. And so this was 10 years ago, and I basically did all the work, handed it to the authorities on a silver platter. 12 years later, I opened my news app. I just saw there's 10 college-age young men in just the Chicago area in the last year that have shown up dead, no signs of foul play. It looks like a natural drowning, the same MO, which I'll get into. And so these murders have been coined the smiley face murders or the college drowning deaths, because a lot of times the last place where they went into the water, there's a smiley face painted in the area of where they entered the water. And so what I'm going to do is get into the details of how I got involved in this case, but I'm just so frustrated that these murders are still happening. So many families are being affected. These murders have been happening since the late 90s. There's hundreds of victims, and they started in the Midwest, Minnesota, Detroit area in the Midwest, and then it's slowly spread all over, like even to the West Coast where I'm living, which this local case got me sucked into this whole thing, and I ended up cracking it. But it's also spread outside of the US. And so what I'm going to do is talk about the local case and how I got involved in working on this smiley face murders and, all the work I've done behind the scenes that nobody knows about. I'm kind of an earth angel behind the scenes, and I'm coming out of the closet, so you guys know now. Anyways, luckily Kelly presented my whole presentation to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York. And also Kelly has brought it to the attention of the FBI Behavioral Science Unit on 3 separate occasions. And so they're fully aware of everything and all of my work and the circumstantial evidence. And I don't know if, because it's so spread out jurisdictional, they just don't have the money and the resources, or they would have to do surveillance on the suspects. But anyway, so there's this local case that I was asked to work on. Dwight Clark went missing, it was about 12 years ago, 10 to 12 years ago, from Bellingham, Washington. He was a student at Western Washington University. And so the big thing about these smiley face murders is all of these, they're mainly college-aged young men, and they're all last seen stumbling and leaving a party or a bar. And a lot of times it's a bar, and they get kicked out for being kind of out of it. And so what I've been picking up psychically is that they're slipped GHB at a bar or at a party, and somebody tells them, hey, you want to go smoke some weed down by the water? Meet me down there. And somehow they're lured to the water, and under the effects of GHB, they're dunked in the water. And so there's no signs of struggle. It looks just like a natural drowning. Some of them have a little bit of air in their lungs where it wouldn't look like, it was a drowning. Some, it depends. There's so many cases, and I haven't read the autopsies on all of them, but the majority of them are ruled accidental death. And the irony is a lot of them are happening in Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, cold areas, and usually during the college season and in the winter when, you know, it's like January and yeah, 3 in the morning, who's going to go down to the river and jump in icy? A lot of times it's icy water. Nobody's going to go swimming, even if you're drunk by yourself and then just like sink into the water. Like, no, it's not happening. So that's my theory, is that they're being slipped GHB and there's a group of them. I can't get into the details because it's an open investigation, but I want to bring attention to the magnitude of these murders and how many are happening, and that just 10 in the last year in Chicago. Research it. Google smiley face murders, drowning deaths. It's pretty documented. Dr. Phil actually did a special on it. I have a blog that I did on Dwight's case specifically that I'll link in the description. But so Dwight's case, I ended up being asked to work on it by the family and friends of the victim. They were having a search dog come in from Idaho, a bloodhound. And so I'm known for locating missing people using Google Earth as a medium. I come up with GPS coordinates. So I was like, okay, I'll go down with the ground searchers. First, I went to the Bellingham police and gave them a map and said, this is where Dwight's remains are. They didn't act interested. They were like, whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll just work with the searchers myself since they already reached out to me, but I thought I should include law enforcement if they wanted to be involved. And at that point, they don't know who I am. I'm just some rando walking in with a map. They're probably like, this chick's crazy. Anyway, I'm proving my accuracy over the years, so people better start paying attention when I tell them something. Anyway, so what happened was this dog from Idaho, I met them. It was called the GP property, and now like Bellingham's actually turned it and is starting to convert it into a park. But at the point when Dwight went missing, it was a locked area. Well, there's fences where you know, there's ways for Dwight to get in, apparently. But we were let in by the security of GP, Georgia Pacific. And so I had that map and I'm like, well, I think he's over there by the log jam. And so literally this bloodhound took off and ran to the waterfront and tried to jump in the water. It was crazy. And so like literally they're like, he's alerting so strong, and he almost tried to jump in the water. Like the handler could not even hold on to him. He was running so fast, like to my GPS. And the irony, well, I guess it's not irony, but we didn't find him that night, but the next day Dwight's remains popped up in that log jam area 50 feet away from my GPS coordinates. So I basically, and he was in water, so I could have even had it exactly, and he floated a little bit because human remains sink and then depending on the water temperatures they'll float up. And so the next day after we were down there, his remains were found about 50 feet from my coordinate. And so that case, I meditated a lot, and it turned out being connected to the smiley face murders. I found a smiley face under a bridge where I think Dwight entered the water, and a lot of other graffiti that I documented and started meditating and hearing things that I was like, whoa, what is this? And Google and research. And so ended up turning into a 2-year obsessive volunteer project where I could hardly sleep. I guess I get like hyper fixated, like obsess on something until I completely, it's my Scorpio moon and ADHD. Anyway, so I definitely got to the bottom of it and handed it all to Kelly with Find Me Group, and he presented it to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, and the FBI was there, and it was all in their hands. And so what we need to do as community, as parents, we need to have these cases reopened, especially these recent ones, the 10 cases in Chicago. Like I didn't really even have time to like research the names and the dates and stuff, but it's like, You guys can look it up yourself. I actually, it came up on my news app because News Nation Now was doing an article on it. And so I was like, what? This is still happening? And like, after my PowerPoint, which is interesting, the murders did slow down a bit, but it's escalating again. And just in that one area, like I had to take a break from it because it kind of took over my life and I was volunteering and I'm like, this is dark, heavy stuff, you know? But now I'm just feeling this urgency for the families to have justice and have these cases reopened, and for the FBI to have pressure on them to help these families. Like, basically, I did all the work for them, gave it to them on a silver platter, and I'm sitting here watching more people go missing. More, like, I feel helpless. And so I called Kelly with Find Me Group, and I'm like, what could we do? We've already done the work. And he's like, the only thing we can do is bring it to the media's attention. So this is the purpose behind the video. Media's even reached out to Kelly and they've been wanting to interview him because they know we've worked extensively on the case. The whole group has worked on it, but basically me, I'm the one that did the PowerPoint and all the research for it. But we have a group of intuitives and retired law enforcement, and you know, we all volunteer, and there's also Arizona Search, Track, and Rescue dogs that work hand in hand with Find Me Group. But they didn't work on Dwight's case. That was just a local case. But the whole drowning, death, smiley face murders, Find Me Group worked on it for years. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to just bring up this video and bring awareness. And please share this video. Google smiley face murders, look up local drowning deaths. It's always men found with no trauma on the body in bodies of water, and it's usually in the fall, winter, and spring, and not during the summer. It's during the college days, college season, I guess. And it's usually around college campuses, but not always. Like, it started where it was mostly college kids, but it's expanded where it's just young men in general that are targeted, and they're usually slip this GHB at a bar or party, and then they're just found in the water. And I mean, I'm not going to call the cops lazy. I mean, if there's no signs of trauma on the body, what can they do? But when there's a pattern of hundreds of victims, yeah, maybe not in your area, but Chicago, yeah, 10 in 1 year. Like, I'm sure they're working on it now behind the scenes, hopefully. But can all of you guys please spread the word and bring awareness to these drowning deaths, because they're not going to stop. And we need to put pressure on the authorities to find justice, get these suspects behind bars, because I think there's a lot of copycat murders happening as well. There's this whole formula, and I wish I could say more about it. But there's tons of circumstantial evidence, and it's spread all over the U.S., but it mainly started in Detroit and the Minnesota area, and, you know, Iowa, I'm pretty sure, the La Crosse River, there's tons of victims there, and now all along the West Coast. I mean, I'm getting chills. But it's like something I'm passionate and obsessed. I feel like it's my purpose on this planet was to help solve the serial killing case, but I did solve it, but none of the suspects are in jail. So basically, I feel so frustrated. There's nothing more I can do. I put all the information into the right hands. So at this point, it's awareness in media and sharing. And I know I keep saying it, so I guess I should tie up this video at this point. And I'm going to leave the link to my blog on Dwight's case and more of the details in the subscription, or in the description. And so please subscribe, support my channel in any way in my volunteer work so that I could help more families. Like and share, and maybe I'll do an update on this. Hopefully there'll be some developments and we could help stop this from happening and affecting more families. It's crazy. A lot of these families end up becoming my extended family, and I'm a support system for them. So I want to work really hard to give them justice. Like, they lose their sons, but they gain me as a family, you know? So like, they're part of my extended family, and I want to protect and help them as much as I can. So it's extremely frustrating to know everything I know and I'm so confident because of all the circumstantial evidence, and then for it to keep happening, it's extremely frustrating. So I love you guys again. Thanks for your support, and I'll stop rambling. I'll end the video now. I love you guys. Take care. Thanks. Bye.